not there when we are thinking, of what we call it as. So that is the thing. Right now, I got a message that now being live streamed uh, through YouTube or links also. I want all of you to. I don't know who is actually logging in and who is not accessing the link. But before I start the class, I just want to know. I just want to say that you have to. You will really benefit if you log on to the link and then try to view these lectures, listen to these lectures from examination point of view as well. Not that some important questions and all are discussed, but we can always discuss if you join. If you join as a participant, you are free to interact. You can unmute your mic and ask questions. But having said that, you may now log in at your convenience. So I hope these lectures will be very useful for you in the course of your listening to it. At the same time, while you're going through the course material, through the printed notes that have been supplied to you. So I want each one of you to make use of the facility that Ambedkar Open University is doing at a huge expense. It is able to have this kind of infrastructure for all of you. You should see the benefit of this, rather than just thinking that it's a formality of or trying to have these contact classes. It is not so. This it gives you a lot of this contact classes gives importance because we come from the industry and we are able to give you the practical problems that we have faced so that you don't face and the on the ground report we are able to give you in a better manner than perhaps the academicians from the colleges. So we have been in industry, we have been had a vast experience in these areas. We have gone through the mill, we have gone through the rigors of the industry, and so we want you to benefit, or not suffer from what we in fact had gone through. That's the main purpose of this particular course. And let me see if I can tell you that today we will be discussing, as I put in the chat. Just now, since all of you have joined now, we have put in the chat today the production of corporate publications. I would like to tell you that we have, when you are doing the production of corporate publication, what is the first thing that we do? What is the first thing? So actually, PR department gets the material of what needs to be printed. So we have seen what are the types of publications. It can be a catalog, it can be a brochure, it can be an internal house journal, external house journal, annual report, calendars, diaries, posters, government reports, or anything that you want, manuals, handbooks, anything that you want to be brought out by your department in your organization is first given to you. Now, what is the essential thing that you should know is when a material is given to you, or when you create the material, you may have one or two editing people, or one or two people who may be writers or copywriters, or you may have someone who is able to prepare the content makers, content creators. When you have these people, what is that you need to know when a publication is about to be brought out? Whatever types of publications we discussed in the previous class. What is essential is, first of all, you should know that when you write something, whatever you write is known as text. It is known as matter. It is known as content. It is known with various names. Text, matter, content, all these are one and the same. So when this is coming to you, it's in a PR department, you're going to decide and whether the manuscript that's been given to you and the copy that's been given to you is in proper shape, for whether it really fits. So what is the first thing that you will see is this suitable to the audience for which the publication is being brought out? The very purpose of bringing out the publication is to ensure that your target audience is in a position to understand what you have brought out in the publication, either through text or through illustrations or images are combined together. This is very, very essential for all of us to know. Now, one of the important things that you should know, what are the types of audiences that a PR department can have? Now, that is linked directly to the types of publications that we brought out earlier, that we discussed earlier. The types of publications that you bring out will determine the audience, or vice versa. The kind of audience that you have will determine the type of publication that you would like to have. Like, for instance, something you want to say. vaccination in this area, then you will definitely think about poster, because a poster will tell all the people who are going on the road in the nearby areas that there is vaccination program going on. So your audience there are literate, illiterate, but information is there. So whenever you write anything, whenever content has to be created, you will keep in mind your audience. And what are the types of audiences that we may have? Sometimes it may be an academic audience, okay? It may be just a general one. The people who like to see academic means routine or regular, or sometimes even people who are in the teaching line or learning line, or students or anything, for instance. Or sometimes it can be a professional NGO audience. Okay, NGO audience, for instance, there is an NGO, no, Mother Teresa has an NGO in West Bengal. Then they have their audience who may be, who may be people who are philanthropists, who may be people who are beneficiaries, donors, donees. All these people, for instance, constitute a professional NGO audience. So we have so many NGOs, thousands of NGOs in our country which are registered and recognized by the government of India as well as the respective state governments also. So the audience, so you prepare a booklet on behalf of, say, on behalf of some organization which is eagerly protecting environment. So they bring out, maybe not a booklet or a folder or a brochure to awaken, to bring in the awareness about the need for environmental protection, environmental, health to be improved in our country. So such as we have now other audience, such as professionals, such as teachers. Teachers may also be depending on books. Lawyers are there who depend on the books. Yeah, lawyers, what happened to earlier cases. So a lot of legal books are published. So we know the audience of whom we are trying to, for whom we are trying to bring out. The audiences can be so many. It can be simple academic audience like students, or learning audience, professional NGO audience, teachers. We have teachers, lawyers, doctors, journalists in the media. They are also, the journalists depend a lot on books. They go to library and refer so many books also. So sometimes what I mean, they also refer to some of the magazines brought out by the PR department of a corporate body, because they give a lot of valuable information, authentic information. The PR department gives authentic information of its organization. A journalist is covering a story on that organization, then you definitely like this kind of publication. So that is also an audience for me. In case of, that's the whole thing that we have got. So we have got even audience, among the audience, we have politicians and bureaucrats. We have got para-professionals in the field, people who are, linked to para-professionals, are those who are linked to PR professionals. There are also allied professionals in the field, local community, the informed public at large, who are sometimes called the chattering classes. So with informed public means people who are always, talk a lot because they feel that they're very informed and they're very highly educated. So they keep chatting a lot, they keep discussing a lot. They also refer a lot of information coming out from the organizations, either through online or through offline. When we say offline, it is printed product by and large. Okay, by and large. It doesn't mean necessarily. But by and large, the printed publication is always held by the concerned informed public. So general public also is there, who are likely to, see your publications, whatever be the type of publication it be. These are all the type of audiences that you will have. So sometimes you will have target audience. Sometimes you will have target audience. Suppose there is a mishap in your organization, some accident. So your target audience, for instance, is the media. So immediately you prepare the content according to, maybe you will bring out a special, a brochure or a booklet on the crisis, and then how you tackled it, how you overcome that, and what that everything is now normal, everything is going on healthy, corporate body is back to normal. You are bringing out maybe a booklet or a brochure and then distribute it to media people. Now the media people have this, they are the audience for you. They decide now. Now they will see the purpose of this publication. They will derive information from that. Then they will be able to produce a very good story, a news story of your company in the newspaper, whereby you are benefited in terms of publicity, free publicity, in terms of in terms of the truth being said by your PR department. So the PR department has a very big role, and you must always know that to whom are you actually targeting, whom are you communicating. So this is very essential. You must tell your editorial department whether this has been fulfilled or not. If somebody has given, some department has given you the copy to be produced, and then you can always ensure from your editorial department or one or two people whether the matter given to you by your organization is actually in accordance with the with meeting the expectations of the target audience. So once first the text is received, then you will also see, how big is the text? Is it too many words? Too many words? You should also know that the text jitna kam hai to utna acha hai. That's very essential for us because nowadays present day trend is that people have very little patience to read lengthy paragraphs, lengthy sentences. They want everything, served on a plate, ready to eat quickly, and then wind up the show. As if, you're going to a hotel, order a menu, you get it in 5 minutes, you eat it and go away. Now, the same situation prevails for an average reader, the present day reader who is very keen to know, to read quickly and understand and go away. So they will. So you should be in a position to have the text in a proper manner, in a proper order. Is your text, for instance, you are bringing out, let us take, for example, a folder. So are you bringing out, is your folder, the first page of your folder, telling about from where this folder is coming, for whom it is targeted, what is in this folder, what is the information you are giving, what is the benefit he is going to get. So you may be starting with a beautiful page to attract your reader, to keep him glued to your publication, and so that he is in a position to read and then enter the remaining pages also. And so is the case. So obviously, the quality of how you have designed, the way you have attracted the reader is the first step that you will be looking into. Then your text should also, when you start reading, the first para should be able to create some kind of curiosity in him, should welcome him, should invite him, should tempt him to read the subsequent paragraphs. Oh God, this paragraph is so good. First paragraph इतना अच्छा है तो बाकी paragraph और भी अच्छा रहेंगे बोलकर reader will be going ahead reading the other paragraphs. So first paragraph will just tell the reader ये क्या है, what is it, just the introduction about the subject, say, one of the folder. And then it also tells we are now because this is suppose you're bringing out a folder for students, so you may bring out the first paragraph will tell it is meant for say students, particularly people who are drug addicts and people who are not drug addicts, prospective drug addicts, the students who are really affected by the drug menace. You're bringing out a folder, a CSR folder. So you should be able to, the students should read what are the drawbacks of this, and the first paragraph should be able to create that kind of tempo, or we can call it as momentum. That kind of momentum we can create so that he's in a position to, he's in a position to actually understand and then try to go through the. So if he is able to read the first paragraph and still go further, then your half the job is done. But if the first paragraph itself is not interesting, then he may really get bored and he may put aside the folder कि इसमें कुछ खास नहीं है, इसमें something important seems to be there. The first paragraph is not really giving anything for it. He doesn't think about first paragraph. He start reading. So you should be, you should be able to, first paragraph should summarize what is this folder for. It should be able to answer the 5 W's and 1 H that we read in journalism. If, who, what, when, where, to some extent, those answers should be there, as many as possible in the first paragraph. So please remember, all the writers of corporate publications should, think about this. The first paragraph, then the actual body, that we call it as the body of the say your publication, the middle, the real content of what exactly you want to convey. Then this is what we call it as the structural, composition. So you are going to give about draft. So you're given about 6 paragraphs. Then in the first paragraph, you are given introduction. You targeted your audience. Your audience is now reading second, third, fourth, and maybe the fifth also. And then the 6th paragraph at least should give some kind of summary of what all has been discussed, just as how your course material is also prepared. You can see the summary is also there. By any chance, you're summarizing the whole thing, and you're concluding with a solution. Maybe you're concluding, on not on a happy note. If it is not a novel can be concluded as you like. But suppose it's a authentic publication coming from a PR department of an organization, you will be giving the last paragraph should convince the reader that yes, that there is some conclusion, there you can draw an inference. You can inference means what? You can draw your own opinion. You can draw, yes, this we do this as mentioned in the second, third, fourth, fifth paragraph. First paragraph giving me very good introduction. Sixth paragraph is giving me a very good conclusion. Then the reader is in a position to draw an inference. He is able to form an opinion. He is able to draw an analysis of everything that you have written. And all this is possible when the when the when the text that you have prepared, or your editorial department has prepared, or your other departments who have submitted the publication have prepared. Whoever has prepared is not the question. Who has prepared the material is not the question. Whether the material has been prepared in the manner that is expected from a reader. This is very essential for us. So we always say the first sentence is the opening sentence and the last sentence is the concluding sentence. It is very essential for all of us that, so please remember that it's essential for all of us. It should be based on facts and not on fiction. This is very essential for us. Then they've given one example also. You can go through that. What is the importance of opening sentence? There's a question here. What defines structural composition of the text? The introductory part of it, and then the explanatory part of it, and then the concluding part of it. All these things constitutes the structural composition of the text. This is very essential for all of us to know. So now one of the important things that we often forget, like we are bringing out an annual report. Okay, we are bringing, what happens in annual report? There may be less text and more data. Data means figures, facts and figures, tables. So we have a lot of data, in the form of figures. And this may pose really a problem. So you prepare a big table with 10 columns, all the information you publish, all the data, 24.3, then 304.7, so many figures, and the entire thing is there. How do you expect the reader to understand that at a glance? So reader has no time to go through each one and then pick a rough paper and then try to calculate. He has no time at all. So one of the best ways to have what is known as a representative data. We call it as representational. That is, suppose some data is given nowadays. We have even software also. We can tell the software to make one pie chart or make one bar chart, or like that. You can make some kind of a graphic. We can call that as a graphic. And nowadays everything is possible thanks to digital technology. We are able to create data, statistical data. So try to make use of statistical data. It will convince the reader also. And then, but at the same time, he should not be, thinking that he's flooded with too much of data and thereby he is lost in your publication. You should always guide him, holding his hand from the first paragraph till the last paragraph. You should not make him to search for himself and then get away out of the publication. The very purpose will be defeated if you don't follow these things. So try to use data, try to use graphs or charts, or you can do some pictorial diagrams. We can create that and then do it. It may take some time, but it is worth the time. It's always worth the time because that is called a diagrammatic representation. It can be bar diagrams, pie diagrams, graphs, charts. All these things can be, for instance, planned. For instance, in a publication like you're submitting an annual report, or you're submitting a report to media. If a report to media, press report to media, you're giving all the data. The journalist has the time. He may not have the time to go through, but he will understand from this thing. So he will see the diagram and then immediately he will write a paragraph that the growth has been steady from 2001 to 2010, or from 2010 to 2018, 2019, but the growth dropped down, and then he may write with the reason being Corona, and then the growth has picked up again in 2022. So he is in a position to understand at a glance. Very essential. This is very essential in. So all these things, constitutes how you are actually planning your production of bringing out a publication. This is very important for all of us. How do you distribute the facts? So you are able to have the facts in the form of text form. You're able to have the facts in the form of what you call it as graphics or statistical data. So there should be distribution of this data. Don't have total data in 2-3 paragraphs and then text. You must have a fair distribution of text and data, so that the reader is in a position to have that kind of a cascading effect. He is able to flow in a very, in a seamless manner. That's very essential for all of us. So please remember that you have all this need to do that kind of a thing. Another important thing that you should always remember is that you don't know, for instance, yes, you know the target audience, you know the capability of your audience, you know the capability of the reader. For instance, students are there. Suppose your target is the students. Okay, you are giving some message to students. As a CSR, you are bringing out a publication which you distribute free of cost to the student community in all the colleges surrounding in within 5 kilometers radius of your organization. You are giving a booklet or a folder on a drug menace, or maybe on how to, on how to recycle wastage, for instance. Then what is essential for us is, in addition to these headline, first paragraph, second paragraph, third, and then a conclusion, I told you, what is important is whether your language is, language is proper for the student to understand easily. What is the use of bringing out a beautiful publication? You have spent a lot of money for designing, for content creation, for printing it, and then for distributing it. You have involved a lot of money in that. You have incurred a lot of money. But what is the use of that when I as an audience open it and read it, and I can't understand because the language is either too heavy for me. So don't try to use very high sounding words just because you know English. Don't force your English on the audience. Think that audience is consisting of different, it's a diversified audience. Some may be intelligent, some may be smart, some may be highly intellectual, some may be highly educated, some may be, but there are some who need to be helped with simple words. So we call that as, KISS principle, KISS. KISS principle is keep it short and simple. This is very essential. So your language, the language means in English, it's language. What we mean is the language plays a vital role in the media. The language that you use in English itself. So any book, books brought out by Mahatma Gandhi, if you read those books, what a beautiful way he used to write. Very simple, easy to understand, even though he was capable of writing in a very bombastic words and high sounding words. No. But he knew his audience. That's why he wrote books which were easy to understand, even while being in jail. So when you're writing for the media, please mind the capacity of the common reader to understand. Is he in a position to understand? So present it to him in such a way that he is able to understand. And that is not a difficult job. Just use simple words and simple sentences. Do not use lengthy sentences. We have, for instance, earlier we had G.K. Reddy, a journalist, very good correspondent of the Hindu, who used to write one sentence, one paragraph. And because he used to put with whom, whereas, another thing, and a sentence, ek sentence, ek full stop. No, not because that needs, and again, intellectual audience. But in case of this, when you're bringing out, say, a publication from an organization for an audience which is very simple and straightforward, perhaps your language should also be like that. So try to use, and don't try to use the proverbs which somebody may not understand. Try to use all that such language which is interesting, which is simple, which is lucid, easy to understand, and then at the same time, it should also keep the interest of the reader in mind. Oh, he's writing so nicely. Interest. You should keep this man is writing. So let me read one more sentence. Let me read one more sentence. Your language will determine the temptation that you create on the part of the audience. So this is very essential for us, on how we go ahead. So we all know that the aim of our publication is that we are doing some kind of a service. It may not be profitable, or it may not be. You are not doing a marketing publication. You are not selling here a product, for instance. We are only taking this as an example. So please remember that whatever you do, then who is your judge? Now, who should be the judge? Okay. So who should be the judge? The reader is the judge, and he will be able to judge actually how a publication is so simple. A publication brought out by Infosys is so simple. Maybe because Narayan Murthy was involved directly, and he might have perhaps read. His wife is a writer. They might also be, having a glance of the publication, for instance. So it is, so for instance, uh, always remember a simple publication is also enough for us. So when there are many quotations given by simple and effective writing in mass media, because yours is going on a mass media, so we don't need some kind of a thing like. So please remember that we are not in summary, in conclusion, it should be to inform and not to impress. Please remember that is very, very essential. Here you're not doing any advertising gimmick, but here you are trying to convince the reader and you are only trying to inform the reader, not to impress. There's no point in impressing the reader because he may not really act. If you inform the reader, he himself will be able to know. So, what are the different styles we can adopt in writing when you're writing? For instance, a research scholar will write in a different way, a journalist will write in a different way, a PR manager may write in a different way, but then there is what is known as a journalistic style of writing because it has a beautiful readability. So, how are newspapers written? All newspapers or magazines are written keeping that in mind, and because they are very popular with the reading public, the general public which reads newspapers or magazines is comfortable with the kind of journalistic language that is being used over a period of hundreds of years, or rather a good number of centuries also. So please remember the language composition is very, very important for us. Readability is what we mean by that. How is he able to understand journalistic style or whatever? What is essential for us is again a vocabulary that you use in English. The vocabulary that I use as I'm giving a lecture to you is to see that you are attentive and you are able to appreciate the flow. The vocabulary will give that flow of the language, and as long as you don't trouble the audience to refer to dictionary, then it is really good. Let not audience be troubled with big words, and then he gets irritated. He has to go through the dictionary, or he has to pick up his phone and call someone. Hey, what is the meaning of this? It may be good. It is good also to some extent. So it's like how it is like you can use some high sounding words, maybe about maybe 10% or 5% to 5 to 10%. But if you use 90% high sounding words, then it's gone. So I'll just give you one small example. When your mom is preparing a curry, what does she do? She puts only a very little amount of salt. Assume that she puts 5 spoons of salt, and what happens? The entire dish is spoiled. Now assume that she doesn't put salt at all. What happens? It is very insipid. It doesn't taste good. So she is putting the salt sparingly to give that required taste. Yes, if you want to use such words, you can do in such a manner, but don't exceed the limit. Because the reader, what happens if there are too many words are there, he will get irritated and he will put the publication aside. And the very purpose of your bringing the publication is defeated. You will not be able to appreciate the very purpose of itself. Then what is the use if the reader is not able to understand? So this is one thing. As use maybe one or two words here and there very sparingly, so that flow or even if it's a difficult word, what happens? I will tell you. Even if there is a difficult word, in that flow of the words of the remaining words of the entire sentence, he can still try to understand. That is very essential for us in vocabulary. So that is what we mean by vocabulary. So PR practitioner can really take advantage of that. Sometimes what happens, he can do one more thing. There are technical terms used. Now, in our notes also, you see in production of corporate, there are many technical terms that we use. And what do? We give that again, we explain the meaning of the technical term in detail in glossary. If that is necessary, you can try to do that. Yes, we do a lot in case of books on botany, zoology, or any other subjects where we do have a glossary at the end of the book, or maybe at the top, at the bottom of the thing. You can also do that, and let there be. And then the structure of sentences. How are the sentences planned? How are the sentences planned? Always sentences, keep it short. We discussed that also, so that the reader is able to read quickly, is able to understand. So what is essential for the reader? Suppose what happens, he is able to understand. He wants quick reading. What is very essential for him, that it should be quick. And it is possible. So please remember, when the material comes to the PR department, try to have a quick glance. And if you feel 9-8 is too tough for the reader to understand, you can get back to your editorial department, ask them whether they can simplify, whether they can rewrite, whether they can try to, make it more simpler, even if it is a, time consuming exercise. Doesn't matter. It's worth, because once it goes out the publication, you cannot undo the damage that you have done and distributed. So many, distinguished writers and journalists, they have perfected this style of writing. So, many of the people are there. TJ, George, for instance, you read in today's Express, you will find his article, very simple language. Thomas Isaac, a former finance minister of Kerala, has written a beautiful article on LIC IPO the other day. He wrote a beautiful article so that all the readers can understand what is the problem with the LIC. This is a big problem. 40 crore people are there, LIC, who have paid for LIC, who paid for LIC, and then all the 40 crore people are eager to know. So suppose I have the 40 crore audience. Suppose if I write an article and I use such kind of vocabulary, such kind of style, such kind of language, such kind of sentences, then what happens is that majority of this 40 crore, assuming 40 crore don't, 4 crore reads, 10% also. Out of 4 crores, you can imagine about 2 crores are able to understand it thoroughly. 50% you have done your job pretty well. So this is very essential for us to know. And I'm able to still remember Thomas Isaac because he is written so good. Harish Bijur is there. He's a media consultant. Harish Bijur. He writes a beautiful language. He writes a simple English. Kuldeep Nair, R.K. Narayan, Arun Shauri. So if you see all these people, C.V. Narasimha Reddy is the PR guru. If you see their English, if you see their sentence formation, you will be able to appreciate, oh, this is the way one should write. This is very essential for us. So similarly, you remember that any material that you prepare for a publication has certain purpose. It has, three things. It has a tonal composition of the text. What is this? Is this publication meant for understanding, appreciating? What is it? Is it meant for what? So, or are you trying to persuade? So I will just try to give you some examples of this. One is for interpretative tone. What is interpretative? So you are able to, it tries to explain the features, the theme of the publication. Interpretative means it very clearly, it is able to give you in an easy to understand manner. Not only easy to write manner, easy to read manner, but easy to understand. You are able to easily interpret. So this is one of the kinds of publication where you are able to interpret. Sometimes maybe in order to drive home the point, you can repeat the point again also. So for instance, you are bringing out a new product, okay? You have to tell about the new product. Because other products, they are known already. Suppose Maruti is bringing up a new car. You know all the models of Maruti cars. But there's a new car which is coming with a new name. At that time, you can give interpretative. For the reader, they to know the features of this, any special qualities of this car, durability, its user, its price. That is also very important. For instance, sales promotion. So, from the point of, from the point of, in such circumstances, from the point of marketing or from the point of publication, which is meant for boosting up your sales, the PR department can also think about something of a publication which has got an interpretative tone. So, in this particular publication, it is interpreted a laudatory tone. So, what is it? Laudatory? It means praise. Not doesn't mean self-dabba. It praises the theme of the publication. So it is to also, maybe you're bringing out, for instance, sometimes what happens, you have to ensure that it's done in a very restrained manner. Don't praise yourself too much because you do like this yourself, then the reader will feel, yeah, apne aap kuch ki bol le rahe. No, it should not be done like that. Now there is a lot of criticism where India is saving the students in Ukraine, but they are also doing a lot of propaganda media presence, sending four ministers and receiving. So sometimes what happens that also boomerangs, that also hits back. Like for instance, one student died. Then what will you do at that time? So when you are, so there has to be a very careful way of, praising yourself. So don't praise and leave a bad taste, unfavorable impression on the reader. Suppose you're praising too much about a particular product and you have purchased the product and experienced entirely a bad expect, entirely opposite of what has been mentioned. How will you feel? So laudatory tone is something which you'll have to be very careful when you're using it. Maybe credibility may be lost. And if credibility is lost, everything is lost in public relations. Please remember. So words and deeds, what means it means your actions. So Toyota is bringing out a car, it mentions in its folder, but at the same time, those words are matching with that particular car when you are really using it. You can then say, then you can go for laudatory tone. When you're confident, please go for laudatory tone. But when you're not confident, when you're not sure of how the audience will respond, don't go for this laudatory tone. Better go for interpretative tone. Or the next one that we are going to use is hortatory tone. Hortatory or hortatory means it is to, when I bring out a publication, what I'm doing is to advise through persuasion. It's persuasion. Okay. Okay. Reading matter, if I do, I persuade the target audience. So that suppose the government wants to come out with a nuclear plant, and then there's a lot of public resistance. Then the government can bring out a publication to persuade the people to understand the right perspective, and at the same time, they can be persuaded to be convinced with the actual information. You know, when Manmohan Singh had a problem in bringing out the nuclear plant in Mahabalipuram near in Chennai. He had a lot of problems there. Media was totally opposing. There was a lot of public resistance. But then whatever the publication his government brought out was hortatory tone. Hortatory. This is one thing is where you are trying to persuade the public. But when will you persuade? Only when you are sure. Only when you are sure that you are in a position to convince the public. Yes. So please remember, most of the PR messages also are based on persuasive communication. We are trying our best to convince you. So as I told you, you're bringing out, because we are at the same time, how can I convince you? Only when I have facts, I can convince you. Without fact, without truth, I cannot convince you. Without proof, I cannot convince you. Without evidence, I cannot convince you. I need this, and then I can think of adopting this particular tone known as hortatory tone. So we have seen, for instance, interpretative tone, a laudatory tone, and hortatory tone. And these are the three tones that you can use. This is the kind of impact you can create in your publication. It can be so. When you're trying to do something explain, it should be interpretative, easy to understand. Laudatory is you are praising your product so much, but don't do that unless you are very sure that your product has been liked by majority of the public, 90% of the public. But if your product is not, the majority are not happy until you are doing, then they will start disbelieving you. In case of horticulture, you are trying to convince them of, for instance, the need for greenery around 5 square kilometers of your organization. You can tell the people, please grow trees, Haritaharam, we'll supply plants to you free of cost, like how the government is doing, the organization can do that. They can bring out a publication. They can, at that time they can tell also. They can persuade the people to get greenery. You can tell them that if any pollution from our organization is there, even that can also be controlled because of the greenery. So why are petrol bunks, are required by the government to have some greenery there? They're giving it because the pollution in that premises, in the precincts is reduced to at least some extent. So what do we do about all this? For instance, how do you write? Let us take an example now when we try to think about this, how we can write, for instance, for a publication. Let us take an example of a good pamphlet. We need a good pamphlet. What is a pamphlet? It's a leaflet, or some people call it as a booklet. It contains information or arguments depending on the tone that you adopt on a single subject. Okay, this is very essential for us to know that In this particular folder or booklet or brochure or pamphlet, what is important is it is nothing but giving some information of maybe something that you are trying to give out. So you are trying to give out something, you know, very quickly, easy, quick and cheap way to produce is pamphlet. Pamphlet is the easiest way. Student selection, they print pamphlet because it's easy to circulate, easy to distribute. On the road, they give you put it directly in the trash bin sometimes without even seeing. So you got to bring out a pamphlet that are essential for you to know. There are about 8 steps which have been given by McGarry's communication persuasion model. And there are about 8 steps which you can use in case of for instance, writing a pamphlet. So writing an annual report is different from writing a pamphlet. Writing for a poster is different from writing a manual or writing a handbook. So there are different ways. We have seen how we can try to mm, uh, you know, change the manner of writing, keeping the audience in mind. So please try to, let us say a pamphlet. What the first thing that a person sees in a pamphlet is a title, which clearly explains. Okay, for instance, it clearly explains the, the purpose of that particular, say, pamphlet. Then first thing you do is the first key point you will put. Then putting the key point first. Then you may repeat the key points. Then visually emphasizing the key point, using bold, underlining, using color. So in a pamphlet, attention or beware. Okay, you may give something which attracts the reader suddenly, putting the key point first. Don't. Then you put use drugs. So don't use drugs. Don't is emphasized 3 times. That is to tell people not to use drugs. So visually emphasize the key point. You use bold, you use underline, or you use color. You can put don't in red color, danger, which means danger, and then you give. Then using question-based paragraph headings, you can give a heading. Why you should not? You can give some sentence like that. Then you give a paragraph heading. And avoid the use of symbols. Don't try to use the language you are using on your WhatsApp or Facebook, where you put all the wise the icons or we call it as semiotics, something like what do you call them as the icons that you try to put. Don't use all those things, and then try to use as far as possible something which is more explanatory. Don't use symbols and then make the reader to understand. Using illustrations, try to make them appropriate. So you can use a small illustration in a pamphlet. Pamphlet may be a single sheet. Normally, some people call it as a booklet, then more pages. Some people call it as brochure, still more pages, and stitched. Brochure is a stitched publication. So we have all these things as we have come to the end of this particular unit in which we discuss the, the, the writing part of the publication, which is the most important. The writing part is the foundation of your publication. If writing part is not up to the mark, what is the use of making the rest of the operations that we will be discussing in the production? The first stage is this particular, the writing part of it. And we have come to the block 2, okay, and we have come to unit 4. In unit 3, we discussed about the structural composition of the text, and we discussed about the just let me go back to that particular thing. Yeah, we discussed about in unit 3 we discussed how in the production what are the starting things that happens. We have to write to inform. We discussed about structural composition of the text, the the introduction, the body, the conclusion. We also discussed about how opening sentence and concluding sentence will help the reader to understand the whole thing in one entity as a holistic way. We also understood what we mean by statistical data, where there's a lot of data on facts and figures. You can try to give what you call it as the as giving the information at a glance through charts, pie charts, graphs, and everything. So you can also don't make it entire book 10 pages only facts and the remaining pages text. Don't try to see that you put the the concerned data at the relevant place only. I have seen in some publications, the entire data is printed on a different kind of paper and then published in some part of the book. No, don't do that. You can try to distribute the facts. And then the language that you use is important. You can use language as simple as possible. Keep always your audience in mind in the language that you use. What language means here, we don't mean Hindi, Telugu, English, but the way you use the English words or the way you use the Telugu. Suppose you are using Telugu and it's very difficult to understand for an ordinary person. Telugu language is spoken by many people in the world actually, and in India is the third biggest language. You can imagine uh, if these people are able to understand the words which are spoken in our daily use, that is better to use. That is also a way you use the language in Telugu. Suppose I use language from some mythological or some kind of a situation like Mahabharata type of slokas and other things, the reader may not understand. So we use the language that is used should be there. Many papers compete with each other. So if you read Sakshi, if you read Namaste Telangana, if you read Andhra Jyoti, you will find Inadu, you will find the language differing from each paper. So you may find some paper, more friendly because it is able to use simple language. That's what we meant by that. We also said different styles you can use. How you use in different styles is very important. And that we also discussed about the tonal composition of the text. We discussed about the interpretative tone. We discussed about the laudatory tone. We discussed about the hortatory tone. These are the three tones that we can adopt for publication depending on the type of publication. The type of publication dependent on the audience whom you are trying to target. We also discussed as an example on how to write a good pamphlet. Maybe as a PR student, you can try to think about writing a pamphlet, a one page, one sheet, leaflet type. You can use some information you want to say. Something happened, something good happened in your organization. Then you can release a pamphlet. Maybe you have succeeded something. Maybe you have come up with a new corona testing device in your organization and it's very cheap. And then you can print out, for instance, a pamphlet, mentioning very clearly what exactly is there. Now we have another 10 minutes, so I'll try to go to block 2 and unit 4. Now we'll just try to see in this particular, unit 4, we'll try to see the importance of illustrations. Are we going to use pictures or photographs or illustrations or graphics for our publication? Are they required or not? So what is essential these days, if you see most of the publications are full of illustrations because they feel that one picture is equal to 1,000 words. So yes, photographs are very relevant, photographs are very truthful, though nowadays we are in a position to create some, effects, stunts, and also some kind of, uh, fraudulent ways of changing the photographs or the illustration. So we will try to see what is the role of illustrations in this particular in bringing out a publication. Many times people use, for instance, they bring out a house journal, 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 page house journal, 5 and 6. They completely put the photograph of various events that have taken place during that particular month. Suppose you're bringing out the house journal in 1 month. A 1 month पे क्या क्या हुआ आपके organization में, functions have happened, some inauguration might have happened, some foundation stone, some lecture, some conference, something happened, and then or some matches have taken place. You have taken lots of photographs of all these events, and all these events can be clubbed and put in the center spread. We call it a center spread, or maybe you can create a kind of a photo montage. So it gives an entire picture of all the activities that you have carried out in pictorial form. So when that publication is in the hands of a reader, an employee, internal house journal, he will immediately go, मेरा तस्वीर आया क्या, मेरा photo आया क्या? He will immediately open that and see. So you can see how the impact it can create. He may not read the first paragraph, first page full of text. he may go straight to that where photograph. So photographs play a very, very important role. And for a PR person, he can use photograph as a weapon because it tells the truth. It shows what has happened. He may use a handful of photographs, and then, he can try to give a small write up on the photograph, try to see that your write up is relevant to the photograph that you have selected. So, as we said, sometimes what happens, figures may speak, but if you show that in the form of a graph, you're very, very happy. You're very happy when Corona has gone up and then come down completely. You're very happy to see that illustration rather than reading how Corona was there in November 2019, in December 2019, in now in February 2022. So you want to see, you can easily see all these things. For instance, like annual report, chairman speech, brochures, trade journals, you can use a lot of statistics, you can use a lot of photographs also. In chairman speech, we can put the chairman photograph, the smiling photograph, then you're all happy that he is everything for you because he is the owner of the organization and he is able to take care of, say, 400 to 500 employees and their families. So obviously, you are very much impressed by this person. He is your hero, he is your God because he's able to sustain employment, he's able to run the organization, you're able to get the bonus, you're getting benefits, you're getting perks, you're getting health insurance, you're getting all kinds of benefits from that organization. A good photograph, your chairman will always, motivate the employee. It will also help you and convince. So please remember, a clear distinction is there. Image, there are what kind of illustrations are there. Normally, what is that we mean by that? The one which I draw, like a cartoonist draws, R.K. Lakshman draws a cartoon. Such is that is known as a line illustration. Okay, let me see if I can try to show you what is the line illustration. I'll try to share and show it to you right now. Okay, let me go through and then let me see if I can show you the image of a line illustration. It is there in your course material, but let me see if I can try to show you uh, the line illustration. Let me go to this. Then here I have line image. Okay, I have a line image. So I'm here by giving you this. So I've taken this line image and then I'll go back to the class and then go to share. Now I'll try to share screen. Okay, now where is the line illustration? Then I click on this and then I hope you're able to see the line illustration. Are you able to see the line illustration? Uh, I hope you're able to see. I have to put this. So I don't know whether you're able to see the line illustration. If you're able to see the line illustration, I'm not able to know whether you'll be able to know or not. So like that, we have line illustration. I've given you the example also of what we mean by a line illustration. Similarly, when you take a printout, like you go to a studio and you get a photograph on a paper, that is known as reflection uh, illustration. Suppose you go and get a transparency, which is in the form of film, and that is known as transmission illustrations. So please remember why you need to know about this illustration is that when you are bringing out a publication, you are given all kinds of images. You are given an Indian ink, some cartoonist cartoon. You are given a photograph. Somebody gives you a transparency that is on a film he gives you, or sometimes he gives you a color film. So you may get these things. Somebody may give you an artwork, an oil painting, a water drawing, or a crane drawing, oil painting, like that he may give you. So you may get illustrations, photographs, images. All these things constitute. So one of the major component of a publication is text. Another component is illustrations. Then these two are actually blended, and that is how a publication comes. So please remember, in this digital era nowadays, this has become more easier, more dominant. You are able to get color pictures as you like. We never had the situation about 30 years back where black and white was very, very economical, color was very expensive. But nowadays, the whole thing is reversed. Nowadays, 10% people also don't use black and white pictures. Everybody uses color pictures. That's because of the, thanks to the latest technology that we have got. So please remember, we do have this situation where we make use of illustrations. completely. But totally illustration with little text is as bad as totally using text and with very few illustrations. So there should be a proper balance between the illustrations and the text that you use in a publication. The best way is a house journal, so the reader is in a position to switch over from text to illustration, then to text and then illustration. It maintains that momentum, that tempo, that impetu, impetus, for the reader to go through the publication comfortably, conveniently, easily, and happily. That is very essential for us. Our aim is that only, to see that the reader is impressed by your publication from all respects. Like the text is good, we discussed how the text should be good. Like the illustration that you use, the photograph that you use, they are also good. So he will be viewing the pictures simultaneously, maybe reading also. So what is essential for us is that now I have only 2 minutes to go. In the next class, I'll try to, expand or explain more in detail about the role of illustration. All of us know that a photograph gives life to the publication that you bring out. It gives life to the publication. So in the next class, I will tell you what gives life to the photograph. So try to think, apply your mind. In the next class, you can come and tell me what gives life to a photograph. I said photograph
Definitely,
gives life to a publication, but what gives
definitely.
life to a photograph? So that is a question to you. You can apply your mind, and then maybe in the next class, that is tomorrow. No, today is over. Next week we'll try to discuss that.
The
Next week on
caption gives
4th,
life
I
to the
won't be taking
photographer,
class on
like
Saturday,
announced in the
but next
past.
Sunday I will take the class because I'm informing well in advance. I have to attend some international conference. I expressed my inability. I've already informed the authorities. So next week, Saturday, I will not be taking class. But next Sunday, as usual, I'll come back to class. Thank you very much, all of you. Whoever is there's one participant, I'm seeing the number of that participant. I don't know whether the number is name or anything. But anyway, thank you all for attending this particular session. I think we have almost reached. It's now 11 o'clock. I think it's 11 according to my clock. No, 10:59. Okay, it's 11 now. So I am leaving the class. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.